Welcome to Solving Quadratic Inequalities by Graphing. Let's get started. So quadratic inequalities work pretty much the same as linear inequalities. You still want to look at your sign. If it's just less than or greater than, then you're going to have a dashed line when you draw your parabola. Or if you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, that's when you have a solid line. So if it was a dashed line, you would still draw a parabola wherever the points are. A solid line means your parabola will look like that. And we're still shading. We're either going to shade inside the parabola or we're going to shade outside the parabola. So here's a quadratic inequality. F of x is less than x squared minus 2x minus 8. So the first thing you want to do is graph your parabola. Use your calculator or find the vertex using the rules we learned in the last video. In this case here, I've got my vertex at 1, negative 9. So that's somewhere over here. And my zeros are at negative 2, 0, and 4, 0. Now, we've got the less than sign. It's not less than or equal to, so that means we're going to have to put a dashed line. So you just draw this kind of dashed line through the points of your graph. Now the next thing we want to know is where do we shade it? So we want to plug in 0 for y and 0 for x because we're using a test point, the origin. So here's the origin and we're going to use these. Plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we've got 0 is less than 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 8. So we plugged 0 in for every x here. Now let's simplify this so we can get an inequality. We still have 0 is less than, and 0 squared and 2 times 0 is just 0. 0 minus 8, which further simplified is just 0 minus 8. So now we need to look at our statement right here. Is 0 less than negative 8? It is not less than negative 8. So this is not true. Now if it's not true, then we don't shade where our 0, 0 origin is. So that means we want to shade on the outside. So I'm shading all this part of the graph, on the outside of the parabola. And your graph will look nicer because it's bigger on your paper, but there. Now remember with linear inequalities, the solution is anywhere where the shaded part is. It's the same thing here. I have solutions here, 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 here. These are no points inside the parabola are solutions because they're not shaded. Now the way to write this is we want to look at our x-axis. Now this shaded area would go all the way to the left as far as the graph would let you. That means negative infinity. So our solutions start from negative infinity and they stop at this point where our parabola is. And this is our root, which is at negative 2. So they go from negative infinity to negative 2. They have a parentheses because we have a dashed line. And there are no solutions in here. And then we start again at this root, which is 4. And they go all the way to infinity. So they start again here, and then our solutions would go all the way to infinity here. And you need to connect them with this little u here. So this is what they're looking for when they ask you to solve a quadratic inequality. You've got to give an answer in this kind of interval notation. So the steps that we use to solve quadratic inequalities. Graph your parabola. Remember, do I have a dashed line? Do I have a solid line? Then you need to use 0, 0 as your testing point. Okay, plug in 0, 0 into the x and y, figure out if your statement is true or not. And then we want to shade. So if your statement is true, then you're going to shade wherever 0, 0 is. So shade where the origin is. If it's not true, if your statement is false, you don't shade where the origin is, or don't shade the origin. And then your final last step, this is where you actually write your answer, is to write your solution in interval notation. And we're going to practice this a lot in class. So just make sure you have the steps so you know how to do it, and we'll keep getting better at it in class. Don't forget to watch the next video. Thanks for watching. See you soon.